I don't know what the process is. I just legal, you know, hey, you know, there's something can't hurt to try. Never hurts to try. You'll get no argument against me. We never, in all time, we never had one where we had to vote. I think it's that. We had to have that. Did it? We had to vote. That might have been the only one. He was on it, I think. Or that. He told me yeah, it's funny though.
Call this meeting to order. For those in attendance, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us in this regularly scheduled November 7th, 2022 City Council meeting. As you come in tonight, which would be to my right and your left, there's a desk. As you come through those doors, there's a sheet on that desk. It's a sign-in sheet. If you are a guest for the night, please sign in for the public record. I'd also like to make council aware and the audience, I'm sure we're all aware of it, but I'd like to just go over it once more that there is an election tomorrow. City staff, especially the clerk and many others in city staff are going to be here at the crack of dawn and probably be here until 11 o'clock midnight tomorrow. So if we could be conscientious of that and be considerate of everybody's time, that would be great. May I please have a roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Soha.
Present.
Briner.
Here.
Veer.
Here.
Morrissey.
Here.
Sharp.
Here.
Stuchel.
Here.
Pratt. Here. Zizer.
Here.
And Mayor Stockford.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into approval of agenda. Any member of council or city manager have any changes they'd like to see made to the agenda tonight? Councilman Soha?
I left there's a letter, it has House Street on the top. I left a printout for Katie and for every council member and the city manager. It's from Matt Lauren. It's a letter about speeding on South House Street. I'd like to add that as K under communications, please.
Okay, and then Councilman Stuchel, did you have an addition?
Yeah, in addition to what you said, Mayor, about election tomorrow, we're gonna have new council members here. Is it possible to reschedule all the new business until the next meeting? And so we can save some time for Katie and the staff? It's a question.
I'm not opposed to that, assuming that there's anything that is not time, not under time constrictions.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
item E is a time restriction.
School Resource Officer Grant Program.
Okay.
What about budget amendments too? Was that gonna be able to be put away on the slide?
We do have the finance director here who lives out of town, so
Yeah, we should reach to those two.
yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, A and B are also time sensitive on.
Might as well do them all.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Okay. That was a good thought, though. I would have.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a long night.
Well, let's do the best that we can do. And thank you, Councilman Stuchel. Okay, do I have a motion to add item number K to communications petitions, letter from Matthew Loren?
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion to approve the new agenda?
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morris, seconded by Councilman Briner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move into public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. And please understand, during this council public comment period, that if you're speaking on anything, it has to have a direct tie to something that's present on the agenda tonight. The podium's now open.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Doug Ingles, Commissioner, Hillsdale County Commissioner. I'm here today on item B under communications. It's a news release from the Board of Commissioners. The Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners will be appointing 2 new members to the Road Commission. That is also a member of our county parks board as trustee. The application process has begun. We are beginning to receive applications. That application process goes through December 15, and we will accept applications up until 5 o'clock on that day. Anyone that would like to submit an application or edit an application that you've already submitted, the time frame again is due by December 15 on 5 p.m. We will, as Board of Commissioners, select the finalists from the applicants on our January 3rd organizational meeting, then interview the finalists and appoint 2 new members to the Road Commission on January 10th. Those interested in applying should pick up an application at the county clerk's office or online on the county's website. Any questions, please do direct to me. My phone number is 517-398-2900. We're very excited. We will be accepting those applications, and they are starting to roll in. So if you have any interest at all, please do fill out an application.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any more public comment on agenda items?
Jack McLean. What I wanted to comment was on this letter, the first letter about the homeless. It says, however, we have noticed an increased number of people that are also walking for a less purposeful manner. I don't understand what that means. I mean, the trail is made for walking, so more people walking on it is better, I would think. So I'm not sure what that actually meant. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the other letter about the airport. I was reading the airport's advertisement, or whatever you want to call it, on the city website, and they tell about how they've made the runway so it drains better, which is great for the people it drains onto, seeing how it doesn't drain into the concrete, which I thought was kind of odd that they go in and say something like that, but that's what it says in their format. My other question is, I wonder why the city's paying $200 to have the lawn mowed at the Dawn Theater. I thought the people that bought the Dawn was supposed to do the upkeep on the property, like snow removal, lawn care, that kind of stuff. But in the finance report, it said the city paid $200 to have that done. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but this homeless matter, I think part of it will go away when the Kiefer House opens, because then they'll have a place to stay. I mean, some of them can stay there if they can afford it, which will take care of some of the homeless problem the city has. I mean, I'd be more than willing to donate a night's stay for any one of them that wants to stay there, so they don't have to be homeless, or at least out on the street. I mean, that's the whole idea of a hotel, so thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any more public comment?
Matt Lawrence, South Hall Street. I'm here today to ask for some help addressing an issue that I've been pressing for a number of years, and that's the excessive speeding on South Hall, particularly between Halleck and the city limits. The excessive speeding by trucks, delivery vehicles, commuters, and general traffic creates real hazards for residents in that area, as well as others. I can't tell you how many times I almost had a collision back in my drive due to people speeding. Now that the paving project's done, it's only increased. I think there's a couple factors that contribute to this. One, the traffic coming into town goes through 3 different speed transitions in about 500 feet, 45, 35, 45. People just they're not seeing it or not paying attention to it, one or two. And then south, they're winding up as they go past the hospital, so it's each direction is really fast. Which brings me to a second point. There's an absence of speed enforced by the police department. I've been in contact with ward representatives, chief of police, and others. But other than Rob Soha, all have ignored my concerns or dismissive. I'm nothing for a speed trap, rather visible and consistent enforcement that I think would regulate the issue. Instead of parking patrol cars at the back of Field of Dreams or at the back of the fairgrounds, how about taking a position on the newly acquired parcel at the corner of Maury and Howell? Writing some tickets during prime traffic periods would likely resolve this problem in short order. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any more public comment?
James Galloway. I am also here to comment or listen to. In fact, I have spent a great deal of time over the past couple of years parsing the meaning of the letter published by a resident to Rob about the homeless situation. I believe the meat of the concern can be expressed in maybe 20 words, and there's about 900 more words of tone and tenor. And I'll use Mr. McLean's question to segue into my concern about the tone and tenor. The comment about folks walking with no purpose indicates that they are aimless. Jordan Peterson spoke at the college recently, and he has done the work of translating some of the words we know. And the origin of the word sin is actually in aimlessness. So if we regard someone as having no aim or no purpose, we regard them as sinful. So my chief concern with the tone and tenor of the letter is if it has not crossed into piety and not intelligent piety, and piety being the unthinking conventional reverence towards how we treat those who are sinful, right? So I don't regard those in the homeless population as sinful exactly the way that someone who is pious might. From an intelligently pious perspective, they're dealing with perhaps extremely complex circumstances. I've written a great deal over the past couple days. I'm not bringing it to the podium now because I think it would be over the top to have that considered before I can get a chance to hear how you all consider the letter that was written. It was my chief concern of being here today is that letter. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any more public comment?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
is there anybody here that's gonna wanna speak on the Wildwood area too? Here's your opportunity to do it. So make sure you don't miss that opportunity, please. Someone who's never been here before, so they don't understand. Go ahead.
Okay.
Good evening, I am Kathy Beckwith. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Share the Warmth of Hillsdale County. And I'm here to address the letter also about the homeless issue. Share the Warmth was born out of the challenge of how we as Christians are called to respond to our homeless neighbors. And the answer to that was, of course, with more compassion and less judgment, more kindness and less complacency. So we are proud of what we have accomplished and what we are offering at Share the Warmth, but we will be the first to acknowledge that it is a Band-Aid on a gushing artery. And it's time to move past those Band-Aid solutions. So my question to you is, what would be an effective response to the unsheltered homeless? And I think that requires a sustained cross-system collaboration and dedication of resources, which unfortunately our community has not been very effective at doing. We need a coordinated approach among community leaders, fundraisers, faith-based organizations, and health providers, moving from a collection of individual programs to a community-wide response that is strategic and data-driven. Programs such as supportive housing programs, rapid rehousing, landlord liaisons, crisis response system, and unlocked apprenticeships, which have all been proven incredibly successful in the communities where they have been implemented. My concern is that criminalizing homelessness is not the answer. We do not want to be one of those communities that is willing to employ aggressive and cold-hearted strategies to get homeless people out of our way, and I feel like that was sort of the tone of that letter that you received. Ordinances such as no camping, no loitering, no panhandling, time limitations on being in certain areas, closing parks and green spaces at night, even resorting to make it illegal, as some communities have done, to feed the homeless, or even employing what they call the Greyhound therapy. Give them a one-way ticket out of town. So I would hope that in Hillsdale we will find a more compassionate and empathetic way to deal with our homeless situation. I believe that we can agree that there are right ways and wrong ways to address homelessness in a manner that will prioritize the humanity of our unhoused neighbors. I would hope that whatever proposal this council advances will strive to move us in a direction that seeks not just for comfort of the few, but the compassion for all Hillsdalians. And I think together as we move forward, we can find it in our power to address this situation with compassion and kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any more public comment?
Dennis Wayne Scott, here in Hillsdale. You know, if we would walk, or if Jesus was here, let's say this, and you know me, so I'm gonna do this way. If Jesus was here in town and he was wandering down the path, the walking path or any place, you know, you wouldn't know him any differently than you would the homeless. Why? The only difference you might see is a smile on his face, a gentleness in his heart and stuff. But as we go forth, we see people in our area that are homeless. Not all the homeless is asking for a place of rest, a place to go in and have a meal, a place to turn around and have, you know, just have a cup of hot coffee or what. But they're here, a few of them, what, I think an average of 15 to 20 people maybe goes into the homeless area of Sojo. And they go in there for the warmth and for the food. And as they go forth there, they get something for the night, they have a place. But what about the other, I forget what somebody had a total, that I think we had almost 100 homeless in this area. But what about the other 80? They're out there too, and they're doing and they're surviving the way they can. You take a handful of people, like I tried to read that letter real quick. You take a handful of people and some of them is going to be bad, some of them is going to be good. Just like we don't know here in this room even who's good and who's bad. If everybody was good, we wouldn't have to have police officers come in or have police officers on the road all the time. So we're going to have the good and the bad and the ugly with us every time we turn around. But it's time that we as people have some compassion, some love, and some thoughts about what we're going to be doing. Sure, it's easy to say that we could bust them up and move them to somewhere else. I think Detroit was going to do that to us and move them down here. But it wasn't because we opened a warmless shelter or for the people that this is a place for them to drop them off. But this was for our people that were in our community that were homeless. It was for our people that were here for us to take part of. And isn't that what Jesus said? He said that in turn that we would have the homeless with us. But at the time, you know, we need to do unto them as we can to help one another, to strengthen one another, to uplift one another. And I hope that you take this in consideration into what you're thinking and what you're doing. And I thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Dennis. Any more public comment?
Hello, I'm Aaron Freese, live at 2891 State Road, so I'm outside the city limits. I live right next door to the airport. I'm here representing myself and a few of the neighbors down in the Wildwood subdivision who basically had some flooding this winter. I think it was February 17th when the great rain came. We had snow melting and the water comes onto me and then ended up down in their basements down the road. So collectively, we've spoke to a lot of the council members with a photo and our concerns, and we want, I personally have dealt with a lot of issues of water for the past 8 to 10 years. I can't remember exactly when the new road to the airport was put in, but I get flooding 3 to 4 times a year actually. And this year it happened to be frozen ground, and the water just kept filling up and ended up down in the subdivision and flooded the neighbors. So as a group, we would like you guys to take a look at the situation and see if we can do something to correct it.
Thank you, Aaron.
I'll just piggyback. Aaron, my name is Larissa Mecklenburg. I am a resident, 1929 Wildwood Drive. I'm a widow with 4 kids and happen to be the victim, I guess if you want to use that word, of the flood. My entire basement had to be gutted and has not been able to be restored by any means. Never has this happened before. And I would like just to talk to the city to see if we can bring some kind of resolution so that this does not happen again, and so that I can provide a basement for my kids, and that my house someday, Lord willing, I don't plan to move, we would be able to sell without any label on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa.
My name is Hope Papour, and I am Larissa's neighbor. I live on the corner of State and Bridge at 2491 State Road. My backyard is where the culvert dumps out, where all the water came rushing down through and into her backyard. We've lived there for 8 years. All the weather variants, I've never ever seen anything like that. We're super fortunate because our house sits up on a hill. Had it not, we could have potentially been in the same boat as our neighbor, but we were very fortunate, and unfortunately she wasn't. Again, we've had all kinds of weather variants in the 8 years, and I've never seen anything like the water that was gushing from the culvert that day.
Thank you, Hope.
Hello, my name is Elijah Hartgrove. I'm a resident of Share the Warmth. I stand with my brother James Galloway, my sister Kathy, and others that have a concern as far as the tone of Dr. Rorick's letter. I'm homeless. The reason his fix as far as shutting down the homeless shelter, because he's saying that there's people camping out next to the school because of the homeless shelter, is just, it's not common sense. There's people at the camping down by the school because there's not enough room at the homeless shelter. There's only 20 beds. There's 14 men and 6 women. So the common sense solution is to create more space, to have more shelters for people who have nowhere to go. He kind of demonizes homeless people as sexual predators and whatnot. Well, the fact of the reality is most sexual predators have a median income of $50,000 or more. That's not homeless, it's probably the doctor's neighbor, or one of them that's a sexual predator, not the person that's down at the homeless camp. So I'm college educated, so is my brother, Mr. Galloway, and my wife worked in this very building as a mail carrier. So it was a series of unfortunate events you know, the Lemony Snicket syndrome that ended us, both of us, at the homeless shelter. And let me tell you, without it, we wouldn't have the opportunities that we have now. Gentleman over here, what would Jesus do? You know, on top of that, people are coming to the shelter and there's a church right next to it. It's like, when I walked in there, I said, you know what? The churches of the biblical times, this is it. This is what they look like. They had, you know, people sleeping over here and you worshiping over here and working here. You know, that church down there is what, and that shelter is what church is supposed to look like. And souls are being won there. And Dr. Rourke speaks of being able to walk to church. Well, hey, Dr. Rourke, if you're a Christian, then you know that the most important thing in this world is for souls to be won. And that's what's happening down there. So instead of thinking about busting people out and cracking down and you know, draconian laws on homeless people who, you know, a lot of them just, you know, 5 months ago I made, between my wife and I, we made $14,000 1 month. So don't think that they're just all, you know, aimless, sinful criminals. You know, sometimes things happen that you can't control. And you need outlets like that and opportunities like that and resources like that to help you get back on your feet. And thankfully, because of their help, you know, I'll be driving a truck again soon and making plenty of money and paying taxes.
Thank you, Elijah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any more public comment? Any more public comment? Seeing none, we will close the podium and we'll move into the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city and BPU claims of October 13th, payroll of October 13th, city council minutes of October 17th, Shade Tree Commission minutes of October 5th, Operation Governance Committee BPU minutes of October 5th and October 19th, Hillsdale College noise variance finance report for the quarter ending 9/30/2022, finance investment report of 9/30/2022, code enforcement report, and assessing report 2022 winter tax warrant. Is there any discussion on any of the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Sharp to approve the consent agenda. May I have a roll call vote?
Councilperson Briner?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Morrissey?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Stuchel?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Sizer?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Soha?
Yes.
All approved, Mayor.
Thank you, Kate. We will move into communications petitions. Item A in communications petitions is Reading Emergency Unit celebrates 52 years. Yep, this was the 52nd birthday of Reading Emergency Unit. Looks like now is a very important time to support them. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they weren't able to celebrate their 50th anniversary. So, happy birthday, REU. Any discussion on this item? Item number B, Commissioner Ingles already addressed it. Board of Commissioners will be appointing to the Road Commission Parks Board. So if anybody's interested in that, I would encourage them to reach out to the Board of Commissioners. Item number C is the BPU Roundup eligibility criteria. This says the requirements are households should be at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. Household may be asked to provide a DHHS approval denial letter. So if anybody needs to receive the services from Roundup, there's some information. The next item D is from Community Action Agency BPU Roundup Annual Report. We've been asking to see this, so we appreciate it and thank Community Action Agency. Any discussion on any of these items? Item number E is a Comcast email. We're going to skip over that. Item number F, electronics recycling event flyer. Dave, this is cool.
Yes.
Yep, we, in conjunction with the Board of Public Utilities, we put together this event to collect recycled electronics for all our customers at the BPU. I don't have the date in front of me, but
So it's Thursday, November 17th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Computers, printers, cable boxes, mobile devices, tablets, looks like just about any electronic that you have. Free.
I believe the only thing that there's a cost to are CRT screens or monitors that I think there's a $10 charge.
Yep, monitors and LCD TVs, it says, $10. So encourage everybody to take advantage of that if you've got old computers or old electronics laying around. Item number G, homeless concern email. And this is a letter that's been spoken about quite a few times. We're all aware that it's an issue. I actually talked with Dr. Warwick myself when I was out knocking doors, and seemed like a very pleasant chap, and he did not come across to me as being aggressive or wanting to just get rid of homeless people, but that whole neighborhood up there, pretty much, there was some sort of occurrence between that neighborhood and the Hillsdale Academy. In between, there was an encampment, and the kids usually walked through that woods, and apparently there was some situation that arose that worried the neighborhood over there. So I'll let council know right now that after the election's done, I have intentions to reestablish our homeless task force that we had before. As you guys know, we had one at one time, and I appointed several people from Community Action Agency, Department of Human Services, and we held one meeting that I thought was pretty productive, and then the pandemic hit, and we held a couple more meetings, and nobody showed up except for, I think Penny Swan came, and the police chief came, and after that we called it because we weren't getting participation. But I have intentions as a subcommittee to our public safety committee to form another homeless task force. What I want to do differently this time is I want it to be manned with parents and residents instead of bureaucrats from agencies. Appreciate what they all do, but they all have their hands in it in a different sort of direction. So I want to put the word out to the community right now. If there are parents, I've got several names already that are interested in serving on this. Then after the election, assuming I'm still sitting up here, then I would like to reform the homeless task force under a subcommittee umbrella of the Public Safety Committee. So since there's been so much discussion about this, does anybody have anything to add to that tonight?
I'll wait till you see, get the committee.
Okay.
So I want to see who's gonna be on.
Well, I'm asking for volunteers from the community, so.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, thank you, Cindy.
Yep.
And we'll get more. Councilman Zola?
So thank you, Mayor. So, Dr. Rourke emailed me, called me immediately after he ran into the mayor. The incident at the academy has caused Hillsdale Academy to change its 30-year policy of allowing the kids to play in the woods. It's allegedly that a man exposed himself to a 6th grader. My kids played in those woods. The families in that neighborhood are not, they've changed their lifestyle to not allow their kids to walk to school anymore, even though it's a short walk. I don't know why these people choose to encamp on private property, but the property owners have rights too. And the property tax paying citizenry have a right to be able to feel like they can walk on the bike trail unmolested. I have another email that was sent to me today about people who have stopped their children from riding the bike trail alone because of a homeless encampment that's behind the Buick dealership. There's like 10 tents there. There's no There's no constitutionally protected right for people to camp on public lands. There's not. There's not. There's the city's responsibility to protect its citizenry. Absolutely. And in our bylaws, we have rules that state if a person feels that they're threatened, that the offending party is guilty of a crime, right? And they're taking advantage of city services. They're using the gazebo at Mrs. Stocks Park as a house and a shelter for 14 hours a day. That's not reasonable use of city services. It's unreasonable. And then just today at lunchtime, a woman at Mrs. Stocks Park was there with her children to take photos, and a man in a hoodie accosted them, well, didn't touch them, but he asked them for money and food. Today, that's against the city ordinance as well. Are homeless people's rights to supersede the tax-paying citizenry's rights? And there was a lady last Saturday in New York City who was raped while jogging alone. Do we have to wait until something that tragic happens in our own community before we take some serious action? I'm sorry that your life circumstances have caused that, but you found a solution, right?
Yes, sir.
But the shelter, since the shelter has been in place, there has been a dramatic increase in homeless population here in Hillsdale. And if, Kathy, if you have the desire to increase that, then you do that. It's not the city's responsibility. The city's responsibility is to maintain the safety and integrity of our own institutions and allow our citizenry to engage unmolested. And this increase in homelessness, what's going to happen is going to be bad. It's a matter of time. I'm not saying these men that are here represented today, but this is, that's what the historical pattern of homelessness is. Look at the great cities of San Francisco and New York, right? They've devolved into anarchy, a form of anarchy. I don't want that for our city streets. And so it's necessary, and I appreciate you bringing up the task force, but it is necessary for us as a community to say our public lands and private property are not, well, our public lands are not to be used for a person's private residence. And that's necessary.
Thank you, Councilman Saw. Any more discussion on this item? Councilman Stuchel?
I have a request. Your task force is spot on there. I would like to ask you to consider a possible subcommittee of council in the way to elections. During the debates, all the new candidates had some great ideas as well.
Yes, absolutely.
They did, but my thought is if we had two or three of us to collect data, to talk to the hospital, to talk to the prosecuting attorney's office, to talk to the chief governor, to talk to Sheriff Hodgshire, and try to see if we can get a 2 or 3 year data and trend and see what we're seeing. Because this is, like Kathy said, there's not one thing that's gonna fix this.
Sure.
But it's gonna take compassion, but it's also gonna take what's Councilman Soap saying, we have to enforce our laws. We need to protect the children of our streets. This is Hillsdale. Every 8-year-old kid should be able to ride these bike paths all day long and not have an issue. And so that has to happen as well. So we owe the homeless some responsibility, but the homeless owe society a responsibility as well. We're both accountable, and we gotta find that path. And with that, I'm just gonna put some pressure on you, Mr. Mackey, but we do have these laws in place, and we do have these encampments going on. Is there something that we should be doing to help clean these things up on a daily basis? I'm not, again, when nobody has the right to camp in public grounds. So I'm just asking, is there something we should be doing more?
Well, the individual I'm gonna ask to come up is Chief Hebner, because he deals with this on a daily basis. And Chief, if you're back there, I know you and I have talked about this over last several days, but I think some of the knowledge you have on this particular situation as it relates to what the city can do or provide is important for everyone.
Mr. Stutz will answer you. We do not collect any data on a person's status. So to collect the data, it's gonna be a little difficult what you want, so we'll need some lead time on that. So,
I mean, when you arrest somebody, you have an address or whatever, and you don't have one that's homeless?
it's just not in our data that we are required to report to the state, then it goes to the federal government.
Well, again, that's, I mean.
So it would take us a little bit of time to get it. It's just not something we can plug in the computer and give you that data.
I realize that.
I just wanted to let you know that. When it comes to a homeless person on private property, the private property owner has all kinds of rights, and a lot of times will call us and they don't want them on the property, which is absolutely fine, but the private property owner or responsible party for that property has to be involved in dealing with this. They have to take the lead. We are there to assist them. They have to tell the people they cannot be on the property, they're on private property, they have to leave. We then reinforce that. But that's the way it works when it comes to trespassing on private property. The landowners, a lot of the time, they just call us and want us to deal with it. That is not the way it works. They have to have an active part in this. It's their property, or whoever's managing that property. We are there to assist them every time they ask. I can tell you, Hillsdale College is extremely proactive when it comes to anybody that's on their campus that they do not want there or should not be there, including items. So there's a couple things in that letter I highlighted that I'm not sure is completely accurate. And because of the one statement, which is not even open to interpretation, is an absolute statement in there. And we have a very active investigation going on in that incident. I've instructed, since I've received that, the detective for our department to reach out to the doctor that made that statement for some clarification, because we have an active criminal investigation. He made an absolute statement in there. We need to know how he knows that, or what information he has that we do not have to further our investigation. And if it was just to further an agenda, we need to know that also. If he has information, we need to know that. When it comes to private property, or excuse me, public property with the homeless, we've dealt with this now for numerous years. Anytime there is an issue or a problem, we deal with that. And what we end up with is encampments we find from time to time on public property that develop that we weren't even aware of, because they are not conducting themselves to where complaints are being filed. They're not committing any crimes. They're just merely existing. We concentrate our efforts on people that are creating a public safety threat, if you will, that are out there committing crimes. That's our priority. If the city, the DPU, if they find a camera on their property and they feel it is not necessarily a threat, but inappropriate because of equipment, substations, power, whatever, we take care of that. We go there with them, make contact, give them a deadline, get out of there. Other public property, the same way. If they're committing crimes, we're generating complaints, we deal with that. We move the people from there. We've never completely resolved them from being on what would be considered public property, and there are some encampments on public property right now. Corey Murray, as you know, did a big walkthrough, pictures, interviews, articles, brought it to the forefront. We get cooperation out of many of those, the ones we know where that. Our officers make frequent trips there when we need to speak with them. Sometimes they have issues, they need us to go there. We have built that relationship, if you will. They're not creating any problems. We respect that. We concentrate our efforts on the people that are. If there's any specific questions?
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any specific questions? Chief, I would ask for you to step up and serve on the task force again if you have the time. If not, maybe another representative of the police department to be a liaison of sorts.
I will, but I wanted to incorporate one day shift supervisor and one night shift supervisor onto the task force.
That would be great.
Since they're frontline people also.
And I thank you, Chief. And I really want it to be geared towards, I mean, we can let the churches and the civic organizations handle the charity aspect of it. I want this to be directly a public safety initiative. as well as making sure that we are respecting people's rights, because there has to be a middle ground on that, so.
And there's a lot of rumors flowing, and there's some were issued in that letter, that we have not seen, such as, I'm talking about busing homeless people in our community from other bigger cities. We have not seen that. We do have them coming from other communities. It's one at a time. It's spread out. They arrive here by different means, and we have contact with them, sometimes numerous contact. They're very short-lived in our community, and they move on. So we have not seen that issue where we have a large number all of a sudden show up in our community at one time.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Thank you, Chief. Any more discussion?
Let's get that committee and get it going.
Yes, we
That's
will.
the best we can do.
That is the best we can do right now. We will move on to item H, dump truck purchase email. Councilman Soha, you added this to the package?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Mayor?
Yes, sir, please.
So, Mr. Hoffman called and said that he had a problem with council approving, not with council itself, but just with the whole process of approving. And he just wanted it to be known that he could have bid on those trucks and provided them. And he would appreciate the city considering him every time in the future. I do know there was extenuating circumstances with the opportunities here with this particular purchase. He just felt like, as a large taxpaying, one of the largest taxpaying entities in the city, that he should have been at least asked. And from his perspective, nobody at his dealership was asked if they could even do that. So I just told him I'd put it on the agenda and let council know. And then I would also ask the city to inquire with the local dealerships anytime, even if it's one of these special things, just to make a phone call, reach out to the local dealerships and say, are you able?
That sounds very fair, Councilman Soha. Anything to add to that? Councilman Sharp?
We were on a time constraint at the time, whoops, sorry about that. We were on a time constraint when that happened, Jason can verify that. So it was one of those odd situations when it happened, but I agree from now on, with the way the world is right now, everything is strange, you try to order things, it takes a year or two to get, and that's why that happened, but there was no intent to snub somebody. That Stillwell's, we do buy a lot of equipment from them, we have in the past, and we will continue to support local people as much as we can, but the circumstances at the time were weird, so, and Jason did explain that, so, to Mr. Hoffman, we will make sure from now on, we always reach out to everybody first, unless for some odd more reason it happens again, but hopefully it won't, but I agree with you, Robert, on that, 100%.
You had something to add, Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman, for your comments. I think as we tried to describe, this was a unique situation. Should we have reached out to the dealers and told them about it? Probably yes, and we will in the future. But this was a unique situation where Ford came out with a 3-day window. We had less than about a month to actually commit to ordering within that window. One of the things we're seeing in the markets right now, particularly with the dealerships, is they'll open a window, and if you want to get, like, say, a Maverick pickup truck, you had to get in that window and get your order number to get that truck. And you had to submit it during that time frame. Very much the same with these chassis, truck chassis. They came out and said there will be a 3-day window, and if you don't get your order in within those 3 days, you're not on the list until the next order comes about. So we had about a month. It usually takes us about 6 weeks to actually do a good bid because you want to make sure everybody knows about it. So we started working with my deal, which is a state purchasing contract designee for Ford, which is Signature Ford. Because we can take a my deal price as a firm bid because it's the lowest state price that's been sent out to bid by the state. So we can accept that and move forward with it, and that's what our plan was to do, or is to do, is, because of this timeline, was to, use the my deal pricing so we could get our orders in. Even with getting our orders in, and this was at the time, we were looking at probably a year and a half to get a truck, to 2 years, to actually get a functional truck. The trucks we're talking about here are 22 years old, 2 at 20 years old, and then 1 at 18. And they're all heavily rusted and in poor shape. So 2 years we'll probably be pushing some of them. And if we miss this window, it could be 2.5 to 4 years before we could actually get a vehicle to replace these. So that's why we did this. It wasn't to slide any of our local dealerships. In fact, we try to bid out everything we can so that everyone gets a fair shot with our dealers. And that's what we'll continue to do. But for the health and safety of not only our staff, but also the residents with plow trucks and getting them and not having, and being able to provide our core services, we felt it was important to get this order in within this window that Ford had the sole control over.
Councilman Morrissey?
It seems to me that the dealers in town really have a beef with the corporations that they are supposed to be representing. What Ford has done is to do a flash sale, in effect, for these vehicles, and they've undercut their own dealer. And I'll bet they're doing it all over the country. So the real beef is against the Ford Motor Company, not so much against the city of Hillsdale or Mr. Mackey. Mr. Mackey's just trying to do his job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Morrissey, and thank you, Dave. Any more discussion on this item? Councilman Beer.
I'd like to point out too, on these particular trucks, these trucks aren't the type you'd walk into Hillsdale or any dealership for that matter, and they would be sitting on their lot. You know, these dealerships usually handle the 150s, 250s, 350s, maybe a few 450s. All 4 of these trucks were 550s. That required a lot of aftermarket upgrades to make them suitable for our DPS to use them. And it was done, like Will said, with the Ford Motor Company through the state of Michigan and the My Deal, and where the time frames were essential, so are very critical. And we're always getting after our staff to try to get the best price, but at the same time, the city does have a policy to encourage local businesses and tries to give the business to them, to the point of, I believe the policy is to give them a 3% cushion, which could open up a whole nother discussion, but I think, judging from the situation, that I think our staff acted in a proper and frugal manner.
Thank you, Councilman Beer. Any more discussion on this item? Okay, let's move on. Item number I, Wildwood subdivision flooding letter. We've heard from a lot of these residents tonight that came here regarding this. Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
The only thing I would add to it is, as was mentioned by a couple of them, and I know most of them, so this, is much like even the discussion on the truck, where you know people and you're friends with them, you might go to church with them, you might do many things with folks or in the community, but we're here to look out for the community and the residents and the taxpayers. In this particular case, our insurance carrier has felt this was an act of God, as there were issues all over the county. Actually, I believe one house actually got took off the foundation up north of Jonesville because of the combination of frozen ground, snow, and water. Also, in our particular situation, most of the water that feeds through what is being claimed as the airport's actually comes from the county road drains. And I can show them, and probably have showed some of them, the pipes that come from the county road ditches into the airport property, which then hits our ditch and flows to another county culvert, through Mr. Freeze's property down the road, to another county culvert, and to the area that was flooded. So the county road culverts are what's passing this water down, and those have been in place. That's nothing the airport has done. So I guess I would just say that, you know, again, our insurance carrier has deemed this as an act of God, and our, you know, everything we do out there, because of federal money, we have to have engineering studies, we have to have civil engineers design it, and that's what's been done. That's my comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Councilman Sharp?
Well, I'm not passing this one up. I went out there and I visited with some of the residents. I took a tour of the double-A landscaping area. He was more than happy to take me on a golf cart ride to show me the drainage, the great big drainage that comes across where the new road is. And it pours into his cornfield, into his backyard, into his property, and he has pictures of 4 foot of water there, which we estimated to be 15 million gallons of water at one time. That water's gotta go somewhere. Well, it went, and I've talked to a couple people there, lived there for over 20 years, and they've never had flooding issues until just this storm hit. Yes, the ground was frozen. But we do have this thing called climate change going on. So hang on, because there's gonna be more of it. And that's what scares me. The flooding they had there was very severe. Did we cause some of it? We might have. We also put 2 acres of concrete out there for the new area for the tape or apron out there. Where's all that water gonna go? I talked to a guy that does excavation, Kevin Shannon. He says the thing that they need to do is put a retention pond out there, which they haven't done. There's a lot of possible solutions to the problem, but my fear is it's gonna happen again. And they can't get flood insurance, and it's not fair to them either. And I think we need to continue to research this some more, because the pictures say a lot.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Beard, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was gonna actually, I'm not sure if Kristen would have anything, if she, as far as some of the retention or on the developments at the airport, if any of that was, if there is any retention areas at the airport.
Honestly, I was not involved with any of the design there, and I would hesitate to say anything because I don't have any in the background. That would be a question better presented to RSNH, who does all the engineering at the airport.
Okay, but going along with the flooding problems, it's a multiple thing. Now, when I actually went and talked to Aaron myself, he gave me a picture, an old picture and a new picture. And one of the big problems with it is the fact that City Manager Dave is right, as far as there's a big culvert that drains all the water at Spratt's coming down Millens Road that feeds right into the airport area. Also, another, from the picture, because back when this other picture was taken, you accessed the landscape from State Street. And I'm not sure when Aaron put it in, but he actually added the entrance now off Airport Road. You can actually see where Aaron has also increased his area of parking, gravel, whatever. That would be a contributing factor. From the old pictures, you can actually see where that actually looks like where the water was running. Now, granted, with the improvements that the city has done at the airport, that has contributed to it. But the other big problem is the fact that the city of Hillsdale has no control over the county drains. And the fact that I think, as far as to address this issue properly, you probably need to get the
county drain
Drain commissioners, yes.
involved in
My
that,
fault.
because if they could divert the water away from Wildwood and get it over to the rearing ponds in a more efficient and less destructive way, it would really help alleviate this problem. But I think it's a twofold problem. I think it's, the city's partially to blame. But I also think it's the county's problem, because the city's taking in a lot of water from Sprats and from Mellons Road that kicks out into the airport area.
Thank you, Councilman Beard. Councilman Stuchel.
I just wanted to echo the same thing. We got great plans for the airport. We're gonna build a hangar, we're gonna do some pretty cool stuff out there yet. So I really think we need to find a way how we join forces with the county and we correct this problem. Like I said, you can say it's an act of God, but I agree with Mr. Sharp, it will happen again. And we need to be able to divert that much water so it's not going to so many basements. And I think we need to work jointly with our county.
Well, Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The city's official position is that we did not cause this problem. So to say that we caused it is contradicting the insurance carrier's position. But there's also the fact of the matter is that whoever developed and built that subdivision never designed it to drain, that area to drain. There's no drains in that area. So the big culvert going across that road into the backyard of the lady Hope, I believe, that's here, there's nowhere for that water to get out of there, which floods all their backyards. So it's not only the airport's fault, as they would like us to acknowledge. There's probably many different attributes that have contributed to this. So, I mean, it's not solely the city,
So
the drain
my
commission.
question is,
It's also the neighborhoods.
are we open up ourselves up to a legal concern if we decide to try to help and work with the county to see if there's a fix to this? Are we admitting, by doing that, are we admitting some kind of guilt of what the insurance company says?
Well, we have engineers on staff or that work with us on the airport stuff, that design it and work on all that. I'm sure they would, and they've shared because they FOIA'd their information that they've, their studies and whatnot that they've provided in their calculations. So, I mean, we are more than willing to work with anyone, but if it was truly an act of God, which I believe it was, how do you prevent that? You might do something that might, because we have, when you look at those ditches there on the sides of the drive, they're big ditches. They're pretty much a retention basin themselves because they go from all the way around the curve. Those ditches do. But, so to answer your question, we're willing to work with anyone to take a look at it. But again, I think the neighbors are asking us to compensate them for something, and that has to be handled through our insurance carrier, and lawyers would have to be involved, so.
Councilman Brenner?
Apparently it's not gonna work, so I'm just gonna talk about it. So, at the end of the day, I look at it as we need to be good neighbors. It may not have been our fault. Did we play a part in it, or will we end up playing a part in it in the future as we continue to develop out there? Yeah, we're getting rid of more ground, for the water to seep through. And I think we work with the county and the county commissioners to try to come up with a plan to either look at diverting water somewhere else, on a different path, because the path that it's on right now, I agree, it'll happen again. But I think the city needs to be good neighbors, and the county, we're out there. I think we work with them and we come up with a plan, whether it's a retention pond or a new drainage system that somehow goes through the airport property or something like that across the bridge road down into the rearing ponds. But at the end of the day, that's what I think is we need to be good neighbors and try to prevent this from happening again, even though I agree that this situation was probably an act of God. The ground was frozen, it was 40 degrees and raining and melting snow, and it was just a lot of water to get rid of in a short period of time. So, but I would like to try to be a solution to prevent it in the future.
Thank you, Councilman Brett. Councilman Sharp.
We're not gonna forget about you guys. We're all saying the same thing. We may be responsible for this partially. We need to work with the county. We need to get a solution. Your basement, you can't use it. That's not right. We wanna be good neighbors. This airport is gonna benefit not only Hillsdale City, but the community of the county. We want to expand on it, so we need to do it correctly and not make somebody suffer for our expansion. So we will do what we can as a council to be good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sharp. Any more discussion on this item, Councilman Soha?
I visited with Mr. Freese and Mrs. Meckelberg on Saturday with Councilman Veer, and one thing that I don't remember if you mentioned it when you came up, Aaron, but when the road was built 8 or 10 years ago, whenever that was, that's when Aaron started noticing more flooding on his property. And during this storm on Saturday, when we had that nice rain, I drove down South Howell to check the new culvert, to see if there's any water there, and there wasn't. So that's the first time in my 9 years in our city that it's rained heavy and there's not been standing water. And I'm sure that's probably the first time since the 70s that there's not been standing water on South Howell at that place. So congratulations to the city for that. But I'm wondering, because it's been mentioned a number of times, if we could find a way, with this being a federally, the FAA funding a lot of what happens at the airport, if we could find a way that they might be able to help us build a retention pond to be good neighbors, like what Councilman Breitner suggested. But I did want to point out that Aaron made it very clear that he noticed a difference of the water retaining on his property since the road's been built.
Thank you, Councilman Soha. Any more discussion on this item? We will move on. Item J, parking at City Hall email. This is regarding a vehicle that is patently not handicapped, parking in the handicapped space at City Hall. I think we're all aware of it at this point, and my assumption is that it's not going to happen anymore. Is that correct, Dave?
I'm gonna let Chief answer this because we've talked about this for the last couple days as well.
Yes, the email identifies this as a police officer's personally owned vehicle. However, there's nothing to substantiate that. We have one officer that has a similar vehicle that was not working that weekend and has been contacted and said he never came to City Hall that weekend. That's been substantiated by the video system here in City Hall. It just says constituent, but specifies it's a police officer. We went through this in spring with the mayor and myself taking the brunt nationally from somebody lying online about something. Now this is called out as a police officer's vehicle. The picture doesn't show a registration plate, doesn't show who parked it there, who came back and got into it. Nothing about whether they checked for a handicap placard or sticker on the registration. I have no idea whose vehicle this is. There's no information to identify it, but yet it says it's a police officer's personally owned vehicle. I take exception to that. I'm tired of it. I expect it from some of the people out there that identify themselves in different political views. I don't expect it from this board and to come through in this manner. And frankly, I'm tired of it this year.
Thank you, Chief Hepner. And that's good information to have. Apparently, this should not have been put in the packet, and I suppose there should be better communication from all of us before this got in the packet.
I agree.
That way, it wouldn't have ended up in there. So I will apologize to you for whatever part I played in it.
Well, we've all experienced how this information rolls out, and if it was an officer, we'll take care of it.
Well,
They're not supposed to do that, they know that.
Yeah, and
we
if I-
get these correspondences a lot, honestly, and I believe we got one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another within a few days, and, so, just let me say, I apologize.
Police officer's vehicle either.
So they shouldn't have
You
been.
said it was.
They shouldn't have been in the packet, and we all need to communicate better with each other, and I'll take responsibility for not being a good, not communicating well myself, so.
If I may, Mayor, we, both the chief and myself, I have let all the city staff, the police, the city hall, all general staff, the BPU, everyone know that there's no parking in the handicap spot unless you are legally able to do so, and the chief has spoke to his officers as well, so we have addressed it, with the staff, so.
Thank you. Did you have something to add?
Just one question.
Councilman Sharp?
That's 24/7, 7 days a week. That handicap spot is a handicap spot. It's not if City Hall's closed, which I heard a rumor, somebody said, well, when City Hall's closed, it's not considered a handicap spot anymore. That's not true, correct? A handicap spot's a handicap spot.
Yeah, everywhere, everybody knows that.
Well, you got some people saying, well, City Hall's closed, so does.
See, this is the problem, you keep saying you got some people. Who?
I'm not gonna say their names, chief, but I said that's not true. And I wanted to ask you directly
Alright,
too. That's all.
We all want to be considerate of the clerk's time, and,
Yes.
this
Thank you,
isn't
Chief.
productive at this point. Thank you, chief.
I'm here for the next one too.
Okay. All right, well, that's right. Item number K, and communications petitions, and this is the letter from, Matthew Lauren, regarding the speeding on South Howell. So since you're already at the podium, chief, did you wanna
Yeah, not accurate.
have any
The
input?
fact that we're not down there doing speed enforcement. Dave and I brief or debrief weekly, if you will, on what's going on, whether it's citizens' complaints, requests, what we're doing. I can't tell you how many times we've talked about this, the officers said, whether Mr. Lawrence sees them, doesn't see them, doesn't mean they're not down there doing it. This goes all the way to probably 6 or 7 years ago because of safety concerns in that block where we actually eliminated all the parking on South Howell Street on the east side because of people entering and exiting their driveways. There was a safety issue. So we have done different things down there, and we are still doing speed enforcement down there. They're probably not gonna sit where Mr. Lauren wants them to, because the first time we started doing this years ago, he took exception to where they were sitting. There was a negative contact with the officer down there, there was a negative contact in tone to me via email. The only accurate thing in his email to Mr. Soha was the fact that I don't respond to his emails anymore, and I readily admit that. Doesn't seem to believe what I say to him in his email, so I don't respond. We are currently still doing speed enforcement down there. I know at the last meeting, it was still construction time, they were talking about people going through barricades, and Mr. Stuchel, you mentioned that we put a lot of money in our public safety department, we should be down there doing something. The signage that was down there did not say people cannot go into that construction zone. They just could not enter it and exit the other side in a through manner. They still could go into it, around the barricades, to go in through as local traffic. I chose not to come up here at that time, I wanted to get out of here. But, yes, we were monitoring that, but we did not follow people all the way through.
Well, we were
that.
told those barricades, people getting out of the car, and moving the barricades and going through construction zone. That's what we were told. That's why.
They could drive into it, whether they went all the way through out their side, I don't know.
We were, I don't either.
But we're not disregarding our duties to our community. And we are actively doing speed enforcement now and have been.
Okay, I don't think at the last meeting that was the comments about the people moving the barricades was a dig at the police department. That was a statement about people in the community having the nerve to get out and just move barricades, so, thank you for your information on this letter. Does anybody have anything else to add to this? Councilman Soha?
Chief, I appreciate you, you know, that I just put these in because they were asked of me, and I thought that if that was a police officer, that he should be an example, and I appreciate you clarifying that was not, and appreciate what the city's done concerned, this whole time and asked me to put it in the packet, and when I forgot to do it, he just felt very offended by me, and so that's why I wanted to include it this time, but I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for the enforcement.
Thanks, Chief. I don't usually go through letters and communications petitions one by one. It's the only reason I did tonight is because we have such a large crowd of people that came for items in communications petitions. So, let's move on to old business, item A, and let's try to get through this stuff as quickly as possible, while still doing our due diligence. It's the city manager, BPU director position, review. 2021 in fall, a joint committee of the City Council, ONG, and BPU Personnel Committee met to discuss the possibility of combining the city manager and the BPU director. For a period of time, as we know, it would save us money because BPU was picking up half of the contract, the city was picking the other half of the contract up. 60-40, excuse me, thank you, Councilman Beer. Anyways, ONG and BPU have been hashing out this contract for months now, so I hope if anybody sitting up here on council has any concerns about it, that they've been asking questions through this time. So, I hope you guys got those out. Not saying that you're not allowed to ask questions tonight, I'm just saying that we've had lots of time to go over this. Are there stuff in this that I don't like? There absolutely is, but it's a contract negotiation and we negotiated it out. And there was a number of things that I didn't like that were in here from before that the ONG and the BPU removed. That were suggestions that I made. So this is fair. And if you have any questions, then please ask them now. Councilman Muir.
Just with the new contract, I think it was very prudent of the ONG to actually take away the street bonus portion of it and base it on merit after this year.
That was my suggestion.
I think, thank you, Mayor, and just thank you for all the people that did it, because I think it's a much better package, for the people of Hillsdale.
Councilman Morrissey, did you have anything to add? You played a big part in this, so.
Yes, one thing that we need to still address is the metrics. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing we need to still address is the metrics to determine the merit increase, annual merit increase. We want something that's objective. We don't want to be just sitting around as an ONG committee and saying, well, did Mr. Mackey do we think he did a nice job this year? Thank you very much. The advantage to the road bonus was that it was objective, no doubt about it. And what we want to do is not have that, but have some other means of determining specifically whether he gets that bonus or not. And I think that's the fairest way of doing it, both for the city council, the BPU, and for Mr. Mackey. And so we need to address that at future ONG meetings, and I'm sure the BPU board will also address that.
Thank you, Will. Any more questions? Councilman Sharp.
There was one other thing we did remove, it was the clause in there for bonuses if he got grants, that was taken out also. So there was two things removed, because if he got $1 million grant, he got 2% more, is that correct, Dave?
There was some discussion about that, yeah, but it did not end up in the package as we worked through it.
Right. It was a long process, a lot of back and forth, going back and forth with Dave and this and that, and there was a lot of things we worked out. I mean, it took time, guys. This took a lot of time. Thank you for taking those things and it really made it interesting for us, Adam. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you, ONG and the BPU Personnel Board Committee, excuse me. Thank you guys for working on this. It's one of the most important things this council does, so. Any more questions? I have a motion to approve the recommended amendment to the city manager BPU director's contract.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Beer. Can I have a roll call? City clerk.
Councilmember Beer,
Yes.
Morrissey,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Soha,
Yes.
and Briner.
Yes.
All approved.
Thank you, Katie. Dave, that's the first time I ever remember a unanimous approval of a city manager contract.
I think there's been.
Yeah.
But we do need to address the 2% as, I'll let them discuss that, so there's a second part to this.
Go for it. The 2% on the roads, or what?
For the previous year, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The bonus on the roads will continue for this coming year because they, earned that, for this last year.
Yeah,
So it would be
well-
unfair for him not to get that.
That's part of the contract, that's part of his previous contract, and that would be unethical of us to,
Right.
so why do we need anything for that?
Well, we just felt that maybe there was a second motion needed that to specifically state that that 2% was a merit increase.
Legal opinion?
I mean, it was part of his contract, I don't see why we need to hold another vote.
Nothing in
Just
the
respect.
contract that amends that language, then there's no need for an additional motion. If you're uncomfortable with the language of the contract because of that, then we'll have to review it again. But no, this doesn't involve you, Bruce. This is between, this is, the contract was sent to our office for review, along with a memorandum that talked about the basis of the changes. That issue wasn't highlighted, and it doesn't really appear to be talked about in that addendum. You know, again, if you have an existing contract that is ongoing, and you make an amendment to just certain parts, and that amendment says anything that, and it does say this, I believe, anything not addressed in this amendment in the original agreement, you know, remains the same, I don't think you need to do another motion.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, we all right, everybody? All right, congratulations, Dave, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Move on to item B in old business, Woodhill Group Service Agreement Amendment. Dave?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So Karen is here on some items, she's probably stayed longer than she hoped. But I think the Finance Committee would agree, and the BPU Board, Karen and the Woodhill Group has done a very good job for the city of Hillsdale. And that we would like to extend her agreement for another year. And so that's what this agreement does, and it updates the fees, which are reasonable. I will say that Karen's been instrumental, particularly in this bond issuance, where we were able to get it's kind of like a show and tell meeting with, New York City bond underwriters. And we were able to get a very favorable bond rating for the issuance that came out today, which was a AA- stable, which ultimately saved the city of Hillsdale probably tens of thousands of dollars. And we'll talk about that when we get to my comments. But so we would like to amend the Woodhill agreement and extend it for 1 year.
Thank you, Dave. Any conversation regarding this?
I move.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilman Sharp, to amend the Woodhill agreement and extend it for 1 year. Can I have a roll call?
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Soha,
Yes.
Briner,
Yes.
and Beer.
Yes.
All approved.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, we are going to move into new business. There are 7 items on new business, ladies and gentlemen, so here goes nothing. Item A, Stormwater Engineer Services. Kristen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Earlier this year, we had some engineering services completed around the city to look at some stormwater issues we're having. One was the Maury and Howell area that we just completed the project at. One was on Manning Street, and one is at Willow and Oak, the intersection of Willow and Oak, where we have a storm sewer that's underneath an existing building. Not really sure why that building was allowed to be built over top of the storm sewer, but it is failing. So we did a study to look at rerouting that pipe around the building. We were able to do that and maybe upsize the pipe and help some of the issues on the retention, or the natural pond that's behind the houses on Willow. So we're asking to execute a contract with Tetra Tech, who did the engineering study, has all the data on this project, to complete construction drawings and move forth with getting those ready, so that I believe we may have funds available in some other, from some savings on some other projects, that we might be able to construct this reroute of the pipe and deal with the issue under that building.
Thank you, Kristen, sounds great. Any questions for Kristen? Entertain a motion to adopt the attached resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Morrissey. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilperson Sharp?
Yes.
Stuchel?
Yes.
Craig? Yes. Sizer?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
No.
Councilperson Soha?
Yes.
Reiner?
Yes.
Fear?
Yes.
And Morrissey?
Yes.
At 8-1, pass.
Thank you, Katie. Let's move on to item number B, high water grant application from our friends at Eagle.
So the consultant that helped us with the evaluation of the situation on the flooding on the low spot of Manning Street made us aware of this grant application, which does allow for a grant request for stormwater mitigation. That grant is due later this month. We are working on it, but to move forward with this application, we need to have a resolution from the governing body in support of our application and our request. We're requesting $1.22 million in grant funds with a matching of $305,000 of city funds for an overall cost of estimated cost of $1.525 million to complete this project. So we're asking for approval of the resolution that's attached for this project and for this grant submittal.
That sounds great, Kristen. Any questions for Kristen? Entertain a motion to adopt the attached resolution supporting submittal of the Eagle grant request with a maximum amount of $1,220,000.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Soha.
this is the city police department.
This is that
Same.
area, yes.
Or s- Yeah, okay, thank you.
Now you can move.
I have a
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Let's move on to item number C, airport rules and regulations. David.
Thank you, Mayor. These are just airport rules and regulations that we should have on file, and we do have on file at the airport, but the last time these were passed for the airport were like in the 1960s. So when we had our inspection from MDOT, they recommended that we update them. Ginger had, the airport manager had received a number of samples and put together the rules and regulations in front of you that we're asking you to adopt.
They all look very reasonable to me. Any questions?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Morrissey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Let's move on to item number D, resolution for a new on-premise license applications from Ballinger Holdings LLC. Let me get to my spot here. Dave, you want to take this? I don't see Kelly here tonight.
No, but I believe the gentleman, yes, okay, very good. You can tell us about the project.
Yep, so we are putting in 2 golf simulators downtown Hillsdale in the developmental district area. We are seeking a liquor license for that. There currently are not any more that can be provided from the state for the area unless it's a developmental district one. So that comes with certain stipulations, such as we've got to put at least $75,000 into the building. In order to get this license, we've got to be open 5 days a week for 10 hours a day. And then we have to have seating for at least 25. So this is a license that the state can issue because it's in a TIFA district development downtown. So.
Well, this sounds really exciting, bud.
Yeah.
You guys think you can fulfill all of those requirements they're asking for?
Yep, we do. The simulators are already ordered. They'll be here December 12th. And the building is currently, we're working on it, so.
That's awesome. Councilman Sharp?
Is this the old Trevathan's building?
The left half, yes.
Okay.
Any more questions? We're really excited. We appreciate your potential investment in the community. Any questions?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir. We will move on to item number E, School Resource Officer Grant Program, which this was one of our council goals. Chief?
Yes, as most of you remember, last December, there was a incident at the high school involving a threat, which Mr. Bondra actually shut the school down for a few days while we worked through this. Officers worked a lot of hours on this, and we were able to bring it to resolution and charge the appropriate individual. And it was after that the mayor reached out to me about providing school resource officers, one for each school, which we were not able to do at that time, or we knew we had people leaving, we weren't able to find replacement officers. But the state has now come out with grant money, which is a 50% full funding. That's for wages, benefits, training, year-round for 3 years for a dedicated full-time school resource officer. So I thought this was a great door opener, if you will, to get into the program in our local community. And how this works, the school district is actually completes the grant application. They're the ones that get approved for the grant. This is as long as they're in partnership with a local law enforcement to provide this service. Dave, Mr. Mackey has the numbers that it could potentially cost, but what's nice about this, it's a reimbursement-based grant, which means if approved, the school system's approved, we provide that school resource officer, we invoice the school then submits their paperwork back to the state for reimbursement for that cost for what we invoice, or the pass-through. But it's my understanding, and I believe Sean reiterated this, that if something were happening that we were no longer able to provide this officer, such as we had a couple people leave the department or whatever, we were now extremely short-handed, there would be no reimbursement requested until we were able to provide that service again. And this also has no stipulations or maintenance at the end, which a lot of federal grants do, where you are then required to continue for the same amount of years with you paying the full cost. This does not have that. So there's no guarantee. It's time sensitive. The application has to be in by the 17th, which again, Mr. Vondra is completing that. So this request is for council to approve this partnership along with approval to move forward with the grant application. Successful notifications will come out in January. We would be looking at, if successful, providing a trained experienced officer for this position because of the stipulations or requirements of what they want that officer to be able to provide the school system. So we would be hiring another officer, and that would be at lower pay, obviously, starting pay. But what's nice is when school is not in session, if the school resource officer is not required to be at the school for anything, the department can utilize that officer also during those time periods.
Sounds great, Chief. Great job. Councilman Stuchel.
Just a question, how do you determine how much time this officer do you need school? I mean, there's basketball games, football games.
It would be 40 hours a week. We can make those determinations whether, depending if there's threats going on, there's problem students, and we wanted them to be at the school for 40 hours all in the school during school time. We have other officers we assign to go back in the evenings at the sporting events.
Mr. Bondra, what hours that officer will be there?
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about that, and those are the fine details that we would work out once we move forward with the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief? Superintendent Bondra, do you have anything to add to this?
He covered it correctly and adequately, I believe, Mayor.
Awesome, thank you. Dave, do you have something to add?
Well, then I will just speak about the financial commitment to it, as Chief had mentioned. And Chief, Mr. Vondra and I to discuss this. I think we're all pretty excited about trying to get this into motion, particularly since it is from our standpoint, because this has been a council goal and mayor's goal. So on the financial side, what we're looking at is, a full-fledged officer with all the benefits and whatnot is around $100,000, is what that costs us, kind of loaded. And that's over 3 years. That being said, the grant is for 50% of that amount. And then what Mr. Vondra and Scott and I discussed, or Chief and I discussed, was we would then split that other 50%. So we would be responsible for, say, of the 50,000 remaining, we would be responsible for half, and they would be responsible for half. So for us, it would mean probably $25,000 to $30,000 a year for a full-blown. So we're excited to actually help the schools out this way. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the financial end of it was also mentioned from our standpoint.
That's incredible, gentlemen. Thank you. Very proud of you guys. Any more discussion on the item? Councilman Sharp?
It's just they thought then, like, when they go on spring break, Christmas break, all that stuff, that officer would then be available to help staff your guys then, correct?
Yeah, or we could, if there was anything going on at the school practices, or like I say, if there had been any issues, this officer will also be assigned to work with the schools as assist with their emergency operations plans, other security things. So there might be meetings for them to attend and stuff like that.
One more question, sorry. This could be strictly at the high school, or is this also your?
No, this will be the Hillsdale Community Schools, so we would work out the schedule for them to move to different buildings.
Okay.
And if they were at one and something happened at the other one, they would go to that one.
Okay, so they'll own the house of all the schools, grade school, junior high, high school. Perfect, thank you.
That's awesome. Any more discussion? Yeah,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
I just wanted to reiterate, I spoke to Mr. Vonder this afternoon, and he's very excited about this opportunity, and is hoping that council's in agreement with it. I move to.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp to approve the partnership and submission of the grant application. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we'll move on to item F, updated fund balance policy.
Good evening. This is a formalization of a policy the council adopted in the early 90s, I want to say, by a motion that sets aside 15% of expenditures in the general fund balance as the minimum that they'd like to keep in the general fund. So this is formalizing not just the general fund, but all of our funds to make sure that we've set aside a minimum threshold, because if we go below, zero, then we have a deficit that we have to deal with the state, and they get involved, and we don't want to have that. So this is a best practice to make sure that we have a policy on file. We can give to the auditors, the rating agencies, and so on. It does not change that the general fund is still 15% of expenditures.
Very good, thank you. Councilman Sharp.
What is our current balance at? This, I know it's more than 15%.
It is 64.5% unaudited. The audit's just wrapping up now.
We're rich.
Yeah, good job.
And I would say that's because we sold the industrial park land, and then we've recently sold the transfer station, so that's.
Okay, that's because we're
Christmas
doing
is
awesome
coming up.
things. I mean, we're a very responsible government.
Christmas is coming up.
Wow. About all that, Bruce. Councilman Beer.
Why the 15%? I'm thinking that covers you for maybe 1.5 months.
So it's just about 2 months, which
About
is
2 months.
normal for cities that levy their taxes in July, and their fiscal year begins in July. So if you were a different form of government, where you levy your taxes in December, like a township would, and you might start your year April 1, you'd need to have more like 50%, because your cash has to last you that many more months till cash flow starts coming in. So in government, we don't need as much, in city government, we don't need as much if we're a July 1 levy and a June 30 year end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. This is probably for David, or actually you, Karen. So, say in a given year, what's generally the lowest the fund balance gets to in most recent years?
Boy, I don't know that it's been much below 40%.
I think since I've been here, we were closer to the 15%, but we've worked up to around 20. And then with those cash sales, it bolstered that percentage.
And of course, keeping it at 15 as opposed to maybe raising it to 20 gives us a little more wiggle room on that.
Well, it also allows us some flexibility with
Flexibility,
projects.
Historically, when you hear your audit presentation every year, the auditors will talk about fund balance, and they'll say that we don't become terribly concerned as auditors unless we start seeing that fund balance getting down to about 15%. So I think if you look back historically, the reason we weren't involved at that time, but it's no sort of surprise that 15% was the number, because that's what the auditors have said for years, is that you don't want to have a fund balance that's less than 15%, or we have to, write it. The audit is not as clean.
Any more questions? Motion to adopt the policy?
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we'll move on to the last item, item G, budget amendments for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, so this is the normal quarterly budget adjustments that we do. We just have a few things primarily related to grants, and then also for some tree removal items that we need for public works.
Thank you. Any questions? Motion to approve the budget resolution?
So
Support. Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are out of new business and we'll go into miscellaneous reports. Item number A is proclamation Family Court Awareness Month. Whereas the mission of the Family Court Awareness Month Committee is to increase awareness on the importance of a family court system that prioritizes child safety and acts in the best interest of children, and whereas the mission of the FCAMC is fueled by the desire to create awareness and change in the family court system for the conservatively estimated 58,000 children a year ordered into unsupervised contact with abusive parents, while honoring the hundreds of children who have been reported as murdered during visitation with a dangerous parent. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is to increase awareness on the importance of the empirically based education and training on domestic violence and child abuse, including emotional, psychological, physical, and sexual abuse, as well as childhood trauma, coercive control, and post-separation abuse for judges and all professionals working on cases within the family court system. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is to increase awareness on the importance of using scientifically valid, evidence-based treatment programs and services that are proven in terms of safety, effectiveness, and therapeutic value. And whereas the mission at the FCAMC is to educate judges and other family court professionals on evidence-based, peer-reviewed research. Such research is a critical component to making decisions that are truly in the best interest of children. This research includes the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, Co-Principal Investigator Vincent Folletti, Kaiser Permanente, CDC, Child Custody Evaluators' Beliefs about Domestic Abuse Allegations, and Child Custody Outcomes in Cases Involving Parental Alienation and Abuse Allegations. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Stockford, hereby declare the month of November to be Family Court Awareness Month. I encourage all residents to support their local community's efforts to prevent the harm of children in the hands of family members, and to honor and value the lives of children. Dated the 7th day of November, 2022. We've got 2 appointments tonight. One's to the Board of Review, that's Jeff Cooley, and then one is a reappointment to Shade Tree, that's Elaine Tillinger. I recommend them both highly. Any questions on either? Councilman Stuchel.
I just want to make a small comment on Mr. Cooley. If I recall, he was the one who wanted to have Mr. Sullivan and I removed from council because we exercised our First Amendment rights and took our daughters to Washington DC on January 6th. But just to voice that, but I mean, I will give my support for his position on this.
Well, that is.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be petty, but I just think it should be noted that, you know, we all support our First Amendment rights, and so when we welcome him to the board, I welcome him to the board.
That's good, Councilman Stooge. Thank you. I like that. Any more discussion on the appointments?
Move to appoint.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Welcome to the board, Mr. Cooley, and welcome back to the board, Mrs. Tillinger. Okay, we will move to general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1. And please understand, wait, hold on, this is general public comment. You can speak on anything you like.
Okay.
Podium is now open.
Thank you. My name's Brad Martin. I'm here on behalf of my wife and our friends in the Wildwood subdivision. I want to say thank you for reading that letter and considering helping us with this situation. But I have to tell you, my wife has asked, we put a lot of money into repairs. What are we going to do if another flood is coming up in the near future? All I would ask is that on the day that that flood happened on the 17th, 2 city officials went to that culvert and attempted to block it. But as you read in my letter, by that time it was too late. The water had already receded from that area of the airport. I would just ask if somehow you could reconsider maybe doing something temporarily if we ever have that type of flood predicted in the near future, before maybe we come up with a better remedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Any more public comment?
Jack McLean. I know when the college built the warehouse on Park Street, the city made them do a study on a water runoff. Has the city planning commission ever made themselves do a water runoff study on the airport? And if not, why? I mean, they wouldn't let, somebody's got to approve building that out there. It's not just a federal thing, the city's involved in that. So anything they put out there, like more concrete, they need to do this study just like they made the college do. They wouldn't let them build their building. So I think they should do the same. I think people are getting categorized by their wear. I'm a little scared to go behind Katie because she's got a hoodie there. And that really kind of scares me after I heard about the hoodie thing. I think just because people wear hoodies doesn't mean they're associated with anything. In the letter about the people walking with less purposeful manner, I can't believe he didn't put anything in there about things getting stolen from the ATO house. I mean, I would think about everything in this is strictly the college. There's not one word in there about the stuff being stolen from the ATO house within the last couple weeks. Nothing. And also then the college had graffiti at the ATO, which I can't believe that wasn't in there either. I mean, I would think that would worry him too, you know. I mean, that's bad, stealing right out of the ATO house especially. I mean, somebody had to get in there and do that. And then stealing signs from up there too. I mean, that's probably the darn homeless people again. We just gotta do something about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any more public comment?
Hello, I just wanted to know, I'm sure I'm not the only person that has had this happen, but I've been over at the building just 1 block from here, and in a matter of 4 months, my car got sideswiped, my side mirror went off, and then just today, my maintenance guy was in a meeting with us and his whole side of his car got sideswiped. We're parking where we're supposed to park, and I don't know what the solution is, but I would have to assume that we're not the only 2 people that this has happened to, but it seems like if I park more towards the post office along the street, it's like people come and either make the turn into the post office or go to Hillsdale near the police department. I don't know what they're thinking, but I've sat in my car and it's been like just this far away. I now don't go in the building unless I push my mirror in, cause it's shattered, but it works, so I'm not gonna waste the money. But I just wanted to bring that to the board because I would, I guess, ask the chief if other people have complained, but just in my little world, 2 times in 3 months. It's
Where's that at, CJ?
right there, right on the main road, right on Broad Street, and that first block, right in front of Invested. And it's happened, it's just like, and you know, we're now filling that building, we're gonna have more street parking. We just rented the storefront, and people are gonna be parking there, and I can't imagine that I'm the only one that this has happened to, but anyway, I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention and ask, I'll, talk to the police chief and see if he has had other reports, but I don't know what's going on, but that just seems a little ridiculous in the last couple months. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Any more discussion? Any more public comment?
Hi, I'm Leisha Taylor. I'm a citizen of Hillsdale. I'm here to address the email about the homelessness situation. I would say that I'm shocked that the email was introduced, but knowing who brought it forth and his feelings about homeless in our community, I'm not very shocked. What I am shocked by is the fact that we are so quick to allege that a man exposing himself to a child near the school must have been a homeless man, and not one of the 36 registered sex offenders that live near there. I guess that doesn't fit your agenda. Instead of reaching out or offering help, you're shunning them and treating them like criminals. Since this town likes to use the Bible to make their points, I will speak to you in a way that you might be able to understand. I'm going to remind you what the Bible says about helping those less fortunate. Leviticus 25:35. If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger, and he shall live with you. How many of you have opened their homes to them? Deuteronomy 15:7-11. If among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that the Lord God has given you, you shall not harden your heart or shut your hand against your brother, but you shall open your hand to him and lend him sufficient for his need, whatever it may be. How many of you have opened your hearts to them? James 2:15-16. If a brother or sister is poorly lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for their body, what good is that? How many of you have offered clothes or food to them?
I have.
For I was hungry, and you gave me food. This is Matthew 25:35, sorry. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. How many of you have made them feel welcome? And lastly, I will share with you Proverbs 28:27. Whoever gives to the poor will not want, but he who hides their eyes will get many a curse. Not only are you hiding your eyes to them, but you are treating them as if they aren't one of God's children. God created all people in his image. Everyone, regardless of social status or economic limitations, has intrinsic worth. Oppressing or exploiting those who are weaker or poorer than you are is pure wickedness. The Bible teaches us to show generosity, compassion, kindness, and mercy. Maybe instead of avoiding them or shunning them, you should ask them, what would Jesus do? Would he cross the street if he saw a homeless person in need? Would he shun them? Would he stand in his backyard and look down on them? Would he change his routine to avoid them? Or would he offer them kindness? You all know what Jesus would do. If we're going to claim to be a Christian town, then we should act like it. We need to figure out a way to help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Leisha. Thank you, Leisha. More public comment?
Hi, I'm Jeff Dooley.
Ward 3 for about 20 years now. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor for appointing me to the Board of Review. I look forward to serving. But more importantly, I'm here to address the email from Dr. Rorick, and I'm going to probably address the email a little more directly than anybody else has so far. I'm not a regular attendee of council meetings, but I do make it a point to read the packet and to try to stay informed. And when I read Dr. Rorick's email, I was just shocked. It was the most cruel, heartless thing I've ever seen in the packet. I want to start with the first line of Dr. Rorick's email. He lists 3 reasons for moving to our city: the college, the academy, and his friends. He says nothing about our city in general or its citizens. These people don't care about the average citizen of Hillsdale or the city itself. They're only here for the college. Dr. Rorick goes on to tell us about his friend, a veteran, who's very, very perceptive. So perceptive, in fact, that he was able to surmise that we're people living in the woods off the walking trail, and therefore, it's not a safe place to walk. Why do you automatically assume that homeless people are a threat to you? Truthfully, there are many more registered, documented criminals in your neighborhood than there are living in the tents off of the walking trail. Do the neighborhood dads patrol in front of their houses? Of course they don't. That's not the people you've decided to target. In true bully fashion, you've decided to target the most vulnerable segment of our population and the group you felt was least likely to stand up for themselves. Dr. Rorick goes on to suggest that the city should outlaw the Warming Center. I shouldn't have to explain this to someone using the title doctor, but if you force people to sleep outside in freezing temperatures, they could die. Is that your solution, doctor? To slowly kill them off by forcing them to freeze to death? That's the difference between you and I, sir. I want to end homelessness while you want to end the homeless. Dr. Rorick is also concerned about the image of our city. Sir, allow me to tell you a little bit about Hillsdale. The city has 2 separate Republican parties that are suing each other. And you're now suddenly concerned with our image? You're concerned about the image of a city that has armed guards at the door of a local church that was hosting the Republican Party convention? You're concerned about the image of a city that had a local political party hold an insurrection anniversary party in a church? You're concerned with the image of a city where various city leaders attended a party advertised as a super spreader event at the height of COVID, while our neighbors and their constituents were dying? You're concerned about the image of a city that had a library board member go rogue and want to institute a book ban? You're concerned about the image of a city that had a sitting council member's wife bring forward a forced birth resolution at the urging of a lobbyist from Texas? Dr. Rorick, you came here because of Hillsdale College. The same Hillsdale College that gave us the Roach family scandal. Yet you're worried about that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yes. Any more public comment?
One more. Matt Fokola, Ward 4. So, with Dr. Rorick's thing, so I recently got sent something complaining about an incident that happened this past summer. About a man that was naked, running around outside and inside of businesses and rubbing himself on cars. He was apprehended, but only after physical altercation with police that involved injuries to the officers. A taser was deployed. And several crimes he got charged with. I can only assume that this person was in fact homeless, possibly on drugs, and probably had a very troubling upbringing. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the child of a local elected position board member
That doesn't matter, because it's probably homeless.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
I guess I'll talk again, why not? I could probably actually stand here and talk for hours. 5 minutes really is, nobody wants to, I'm not gonna even try that, but, I think it's a wonderful outlet for folks to come to. I spend a lot of time at this podium in my mind, because I feel I have a moral responsibility a lot of times to come here and say things that need said. Tonight I really did have a lot more to say, but there was a lot of folks that came out and said exactly what I was thinking. But honestly, before I get into the content of what I want to say in my 5 minutes, this isn't even the council we're going to be dealing with next week. There's a number of you that aren't even running for re-election, and I think a lot of that owes to perhaps some latent shame of this community owing to some of the events that Mr. Cooley spoke of. And I think in that shame exists the reasons for the stranger danger campaigns, right? Folks can't own their own grief, so they're in denial and cycling into emotional outbursts and whatnot. Now, I've got a lot to say, but I kind of have the right and responsibility to remain silent at this point. But I'm gonna be following the story of the letter that was authored publicly and the investigation that goes into it, because by your own admission and through the comments of the chief, it occurs to me that there's possible criminal libel authored in that piece. If, in fact, there are not credible threats that indeed happen, right? By your own admission, if members of the homeless community felt threatened by that letter, then the offender is guilty of a crime, right? And right now, Dr. Rorick, I believe is his name, claims to represent a community of potential conspirators in potential crime. If this is in fact a stranger danger hysteria situation, which I have intimate knowledge of from personal experience and going way back through the past. Now, I'm glad it's Family Court Awareness Month. The proclamation did indicate the idea of emotional abuse in families, and I think narcissism rages in this community, and one such element of narcissistic abuse is to try to possess your kids by making them afraid of everyone else who might influence them. Okay, so there's elements in my talk that I would love to expound upon, but as of right now, I stand in support of all the people offended by the letter. And I'm currently not homeless, but I have recently experienced homelessness. I'm not homeless because I'm sharing the warmth at the warming center, and that has helped me stabilize myself, which has been a rare thing for me to feel over the last 18 months.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? Seeing none, we will close the podium, go into the city manager's report. David?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things I want to mention. Again, we did sell the transfer station on November 1st, so that sale is closed. We continue to work with Meyer on their store, and as things move along, it looks like they're shooting for spring groundbreaking, so we're trying to keep them on track for that. We did have our bond sale today, as I mentioned, and we had actually 7 bids for our bond, which the bond underwriters were very pleased with the best rate coming in at 0.26%. So we're getting that paperwork done, and we'll be closing that bond sale later this month, and that will fund, again, the Westwood project for next year, as well as water and sewer capital improvements. Also, on the water and sewer side, we did receive a $2 million grant to assist both water and sewer departments in the water side of replacing 75 major valves within the community. What happens with these valves, they were put in a long time ago, they seize up, and then as you get water main breaks, you have to go back and back until you can find one that shuts off an area, and that could sometimes be much larger than what you would hope. So we're replacing 75 valves in this grant, and then also doing quite a bit of sewer main lining and replacement. So in total, the project's about $2.6 million, and that's also going to be starting next year. One last thing, or a couple things. Today we had a ribbon cutting for Hillsdale Terminal. They purchased the old Cardinal Group building in the industrial park for more space and to further grow. And want to thank the Condon family for that continuation of business. My understanding is it started with the father back in 76, and there's 4 generations of Condons working there. Very proud, like I said, they told us today that this would be their 8th expansion of their manufacturing operation, so we want to congratulate them on that. And then the last thing I want to mention is something that Councilman Reiner had said about being a good neighbor, particularly as it relates to the airport and the neighbors in that area. I would say, Councilman Reiner, that Hillsdale always tries to be a good neighbor, and as a city, and I will say so in this particular situation because when unfortunately the events and the flooding was occurring, we actually had fire trucks there. We were trying to get assistance to actually pump water, but there was just so much water that our efforts couldn't handle it, where other municipal jurisdictions wouldn't even go to the area. And so this was out of our jurisdiction, and we were assisting, and we got mutual aid, I believe, through Jonesville. Is that correct, Chief?
Correct.
To try to do anything we could.
What's the township out there?
That was Hillsdale Township.
Okay. I can answer that. Jonesville, Hillsdale Township could not do it because their pumper truck was either out of service or something was wrong. Jonesville came, correct? Jonesville came and pumped it.
Hillsdale, just township bowed out, said they didn't do stuff like that. Yeah, Jonesville came over with a pump and assisted us until it was taken care of.
Right, because they've got the equipment to do outside where there's not hydrants available.
Correct, but again, my point is that we attempt to be a good neighbor, and just want to reinforce that. Whether it's be a good neighbor when we can, or bidding out our purchases locally to help promote local businesses. You know, we have to balance that with, you know, supporting locally, being a good neighbor with the city duties as well. And sometimes that is challenging, and I mean, it takes tough decisions. But that being said, you know, we do try every time. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Council comment?
I just wanna say thanks, Dave, for giving me that information, and I'm happy that us as a city, we're out there, outside of our jurisdiction, trying to help. So thank you for that, cause I don't think I remember, Aaron might have told me that or something like that, but I didn't remember that, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Councilman Reiner. Councilman Sharp?
Just want to say, Ray, it's been a privilege working with you. Bill, the same way. Gonna miss you. But,
I'll live right, you know.
I know, I see you walking by all the time. But, I just wanna let you guys know, we're not gonna forget about you, I promise.
I know one way to fix it.
She wants to
real
ask a
easy.
question really bad.
I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I'd like to make a statement that the officers, or the fire trucks the men that came out to help us was out of, the kindness of their own hearts, nothing that the city did, and we have reached out to the city multiple times and there has been no response. So I just want you to know that the men who showed up to remove the water that was flooding our basements was out of their kindness as good people, not out of the city's.
If I may, that's not correct, ma'am, because those trucks wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for, their direction out of City Hall and leadership here. So you would have not seen those trucks, and you did not see other trucks that could have been there. So, you know, I understand you're upset about this situation, but that's not true.
I think that this conversation could go on for a while.
Yeah, this is council comment period.
Yeah.
Alright, let's not get out of control.
Yep, only council members right now. Councilman Stuchel.
Yeah, two things. First of all, Friday is Veterans Day, and I'd like to thank David and Rob and Jack McLean and anybody else here who's a veteran for their service to our great country. So
welcome.
Thank you. Second thing, the train committee has kind of grown into a events committee for the city with Kelly leading charge and Gianna and my wife Heather. They're going to be, they've actually coordinated with TIF as well and the beautification committee. And with a great donation from Hillsdale College, we're gonna have some new Christmas decorations going down House Street, lights and upgrades and Christmas decorations as well, so. Thanks for looking out.
That's awesome. Thank you for the good news, Councilman Stuchel. Any other council comment?
Motion to adjourn,
I'll do a quick one. I just wanna say that, that it was a distinct pleasure and honor to be on the city council and hopefully to represent the citizens of my ward as best I knew how. I don't think that we do have anything to be ashamed of. There are things as human beings that we could do better, and there are things that we learn about. For me, the lack of desire to run had to do more with the fact that my individual temperament is not such that I like being called an idiot for things that are largely beyond my control. There are those of us who are more politically gifted who can eat what's shoveled, and I think I learned over time that that's not for me. But there are things that we've done that I'm distinctly proud of, and there are things I think we could have done better. And I think that one of the high points was working with each and every one of you. So it's a small town, there are no true goodbyes. So we'll see what's next.
Thank you, Councilman Zeiser. You and Councilman Reiner will sorely be missed. Councilman Reiner.
I want to say my goodbye too. So I just want to say it's been a pleasure for the last 5 years to be on council with all of you and previous council members. It's been a privilege to serve the city of Hillsdale at this capacity, and I'm going to miss it. Again, it was more of a time issue with me, with my daughter getting older and coaching basketball and softball, and being on many other boards and everything like that. The school board is in my future, I believe, so, and I can't do that if I'm on council, same night. So, just wanna say thank you all. I might not have agreed with everybody, but I respect everybody, and that goes for everybody, as far as citizens that have come to the podium and you know, maybe have not thought highly of me. I just wanna let you know that I still respect you, even though we solve differences. So, thank you for the last 5 years.
Thank you, Ray and Bill. You guys are two of the best, for sure. Any more council comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Reiner to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting's adjourned.